Hello, and welcome to the podcast where three friends discuss environmental policies from around the planet. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode 5. We're so glad you guys are back. And I am here with my fellow policy pal, Adwa. Hey, Adwa.
Hi.
Hi. And Abba can't be here again this episode. She's taking a little break, but she will be back soon, and she misses you guys. All right, so Adwa, just a little something before we start. I cannot deal with Greg the Abomination Abbott. I just feel like he's just a very annoying man. Like, he just tries to be on the negative side of everything.
Girl, yep.
It's just becoming more and more true. Like, he is mad that Major League Baseball wants to stand against suppressing voting rights. Like, he just hates on weird things.
Yeah, it's because he is not actually doing his own job, so he'll do anything else.
Adwa, you kill me. Where do you get these from? Okay. Anyway, what's new with you?
So, did you hear about the Florida leak that happened last week?
Oh, yes.
Girl, that's insane to me. The fact that people actually, they had to evacuate something like 300 people. There's like 21 billion liters of swamp water that they're just like worried about, and they're just like trying to get that water out before it bursts and like floods the whole area. And some of the water, because of the fertilizer industry there, they say like they are saying that the water is not radioactive, but it has radioactive material. So
which is tricky.
Whatever the fuck that means.
So one thing about Florida is like just the standards that they use to maintain or manage water in general. Well, hopefully that improves. Hopefully everybody there is safe, and hopefully
DeSantis actually does his job. Yeah.
Something I read in environmental news, I guess, is about murder rate in environmental justice. Like, yeah, it's not as crazy as like other things maybe, but it's still kind of ridiculous. So a recent report from Frontline Defenders revealed that in 2020, at least 331 environmental defenders were killed globally. The majority of the deaths were among people who worked in like defense of land and environmental rights and rights of Indigenous people, so I guess just rights in general. Of the 331 murders registered last year, Colombia had the most murders at 177. And in fact, they account for 53% of all rights defender cases globally in 2020.
That's insane. Yeah. That's a high number.
I thought that was kind of crazy. So, like, I mean, there's a little history there and just how the Civil War ended and the kind of balance that they had to strike between the FARC, which, you guys, I was going to say the Spanish, but I practiced and it didn't work out. So the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, them, kind of had to broker peace with the government as well. And it just led to, I guess, a kind of unrest that's still there. You know what I mean? So, and it's like a really unequal country. Like 1% of the population owns more than 50% of the land that is productive, land that you can use for stuff. Audra, what do you think about these stats? What is going on?
Girl, well, speaking of Colombia, you know how Colombia has really bad case of illegal gold mining, and a lot of these actually, the way that a lot of these people are actually empowered are because, so they did a whole expose on how the gold in your iPhones is actually not as safely or as nicely gotten, like, you know how they keep saying that we have gotten it from viable and legal sources, but that's actually not true. In fact, I think they did like a New York Times series where they released a segment where they detailed like the route of illegal gold from Colombian mines and how it ended up in iPhones and other technology that people use in their daily lives. And they also basically, the news outlet correspondents also actually state that violent paramilitary activity has infiltrated each level of the gold mining supply chain through extorting gold prospectors, traders, and top mining officials in the country. Now, this obviously, like, companies like Apple will always claim that whatever that they're getting, their gold is very sustainable, and like if you go on Apple's website, they will tell you how they know exactly where everything is coming from. No, they don't. And Apple just looks the other way. They know the kind of shit that goes down.
Or that thing where they use third parties. These sometimes companies will be like, oh, we outsource it.
Right. And you know how you're talking about that country, you're talking about how there's such a high level of debt, and that's because they're like these gangs that you would call them essentially, and they will kill all the locals who protest about the ecosystems being destroyed, and then they'll sell it to big companies like Apple. So it's a hot mess.
I mean, I feel like it's also a very like complicated, complex situation. There's a lot of parties involved. Anyway,
there are a lot of parties involved.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the cool thing is, in this episode, we're actually going to talk about an organization that is working to balance that out. We got a really awesome question about why overfishing is not well regulated and why does whaling still exist. Thank you so much for messaging us. We love hearing from you guys. So, Audra, why do you think this is with the overfishing and the whaling?
Well, okay, so overfishing, we also have to understand that whaling and overfishing, people have, fishing they consider to be part of a lot of cultures, right? Like whaling, they consider a part of Japan's culture. So when you have all these cultures that come in, you can't just say, oh, we're not gonna fish, or we're gonna completely ban fishing, because you have cultures who their main source of protein, like they predominantly rely on seafood. So it would be very snobby personally to just say, oh, ban fishing. But we do know that the biggest reason for overfishing is bycatch and illegal trading. So if we can really just kind of curb on those aspects, then I think we can achieve sustainable fishing methods that can work really well for the growing demand of the world as well.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like, half of the world's population relies on fish, and I love seafood, so yes, I see what you mean. And, people will always say, like, oh, people have to make money, but it's not profitable for fishermen in the long run because they run out of fish. As for whaling, it's pretty complicated why it's still around, but like Audra said, culture is a big part. There's, like, tribes that get to protect it, and then there's also the fact that Norway was just like, yeah, hell no. There's a loophole, so Japan followed them, and then Iceland as well. We are going to discuss this further in our extra policy bonus for this episode, because you guys seem to like that, so we're keeping it. So we have been talking a lot about larger intergovernmental organizations, such as UNEP, IPCC, CGIAR. So, by the way, be sure to listen to our last episode about IPCC, by the way. The climate conversation was enlightening, and we had a good time, I'd say.
Yeah, we don't want to tell you why, but we did.
Yeah, go listen. Anyway, we want to shift our focus to look at communities and the people doing work to aid them, because, as we've said multiple times, grassroots activism is key to changing a lot of major policy. A grassroots organization or movement is basically like a community-driven effort. People in their communities will identify problems that they understand best, that's unique to them, and that's why they're a key part of environmental justice. They do require more funding. Well, they don't require more funding, but they have less access to funding. So it's really cool if you have anything to check out some of these organizations in your communities, ones we talk about too, and participate or donate whatever you can. So we're going to be discussing 4 major organizations today in different parts of the world. The first one will be the Baltistan Wildlife Conservation and Development Organization, which I had never heard about this organization till today, but Audra put me on. Thank you, Audra. And of
course.
Yeah, they're actually working to protect snow leopards in Pakistan in an attempt to create a better harmony between the locals and the animals. Then we're going to talk about Action Aid Ghana, which is an affiliate of the Global Action Aid, of which I am a big fan. And they're the people who do a lot to combat economic inequality. But today we're really going to focus on their work with agriculture and climates and how they're doing that there. Then another cool organization is the Community Baboon Sanctuary Women's Conservation Group. Whew, that's a mouthful. A woman-led coalition in Belize that is working to protect baboons through grassroots conservation. And guys, Aja put me onto this one too, and they're really they're badasses.
They're amazing. I will get into it later, but oh god.
So the Foundation for Conservation and Sustainable Development is the last organization we'll be talking about, and they're the one I found out about as I was reading that news about Colombia. And they're working to preserve the Colombian Amazon while also protecting the rights of indigenous people to their land. And so really the focus of this episode, I guess, is that we're really going to go in on the policy aspect of things and what people are doing. So I'm just going to talk about the first one, and then we'll just keep talking about the rest of them. So Adra, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Ala. Although, let me just clarify, it's Baltistan. I know you worry too much about the Spanish ones. I thought you had this one under your belt, but, for all my Baltistan people out there, I had to. I'm sorry.
Okay, I got this, guys. Baltistan.
Yep, you got it. There you go.
Thank you. All right, so tell us about these organizations, Adra.
Yes, I will talk about the Baltistan Wildlife Conservation and Development Organization, which basically their entire point is to change the human-snow leopard relationship dynamics. So it was formally recognized as a Project Snow Leopard because it's a non-profit organization and it has been working in Baltistan since 1999. When 2007, they were registered under their current name, which is the Baltistan Wildlife Conservation and Development Organization. In 1999, though, the same organization, they set up a pilot insurance scheme in Skioyo village to compensate losses of livestock. And through this work, farmers and communities, they were able to come to an understanding that they can benefit more from protecting the snow leopard than by actually killing it. Now, for me, I thought it's mind-blowing for them to actually come together and be like, you know what, we don't have to kill it, let's just save it.
I agree. That's actually a big, big thing.
Right. And the project actually proved successful in decreasing snow leopard retaliatory killings and improving the local economy. Since the launch, the project has actually expanded to 17 villages and benefited more than 20,000 people in Skardu, Shigar, the Kaplu districts,
wow,
which covers nearly 500,000 hectares in the Baltistan region of northern Pakistan.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they actually are doing great work. Their mission is basically to find ways and means to plan for conservation of wildlife, and most particularly, of course, the snow leopard population. Now, the main objectives that they say that they have is obviously to protect the leopard population through community involvement. They also want to acknowledge the social and economic implications of the snow leopard conservation approach, which I think personally is really great. So they're including a lot more researchers from around the country to just come and volunteer for them, really. And I think that's really great because a lot of people actually do sign up as well. They also want to create an economic incentive for local farmers so that they can reduce the conflict between them and the snow leopards. And of course, finding solutions for the predation of livestock. And they do want to renovate the herding techniques, because the whole purpose to set up this organization was because it was for farmers who were constantly being attacked by snow leopards. Now, one of the good things about this organization is that they are really dedicated to supporting local communities rather than imposing a top-down scheme thing, right? And we've talked about this before, that what we think, especially when it comes to grassroots organizations, what we think will be more effective, right?
Yeah.
So they operate under the rationale that facilitating local ownership of the project, that will empower communities and will ultimately ensure the long-term success of the project. So over the years, they have actually evolved to include livestock vaccination programs against diseases, because obviously this is, like I said, again, pro-agriculture. So they are working constantly to make sure that their overall stock is increased, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So they have small-scale water supply projects so that they can garner increased local support to protect the snow leopards and their prey. And then, of course, they have educational support to community girls and education. Now, you have to understand, in this part of the region, girls' education is actually not, they do struggle with that. But this organization actually works a lot in order to provide girls with more opportunities.
That's fantastic.
Right, it's actually really impressive. And the decision-making structure of the organization, so basically they have kind of several mechanisms to ensure significant involvement of local people. So they have a board of directors which has a female gender expert, and it provides advice and general guidance to the program activities. 5 local communities are consulted at every stage, from planning to design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And this active involvement is actually what helps build the trust and ownership amongst villagers. Now, I know that we've talked about this before, and I just want to get your input on this, Ala. What do you think about village collaboration and their efficiency?
I mean, I think that, these things are important. We've talked about it a lot. And according to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, grassroots organizations can be just as effective as investing money, when you need solutions. I mean, like, who knows better what this community needs than members of their community? You know what I mean? It's really important. Actually, an example, so they did this thing in 3 districts in Malawi. They had like a pilot program, which is now a full-fledged program, and it was called Justice for Vulnerable Groups, and it was launched to address GBV, gender-based violence. So seed funding came from UNICEF. They also had stakeholders from the government and civil society, the police, the UNFPA, which deals with sexual health and reproduction. And they all came together, and I think having that balance between having a grassroots organization, having money, having enforcement from police, and resources as well, led to a positive result where more school children directly reported cases of GBV to authorities. And there were better equipped police officers who were trained to be able to handle these victims and related cases. So I definitely think it's very important. I just think sometimes maybe they don't get the notice that they should, and people don't know that they need the money.
People don't usually give credit. Like, a lot of times they're just like, no, you should, we need a proper regulatory organization or a regulatory authority to kind of just like impose whatever laws there are. But in communities like these, especially like Baltistan, like I said, a lot of it is quite remote as well. So you need locals, and you can't really do anything without the help of the locals. Under each of the BWCDO project, they have a village insurance committee, which is created to look after the daily affairs. Now, this committee is responsible for verifying insurance claims, setting up remote cameras, and they also supervise the construction of the predator-proof corrals that they build to keep the farmers safe and their crops safe. Now, villages are responsible for electing the members of the VCC, and then the committee then assigns tasks to different community members. The organization staff is comprised by 6 male employees and 48 male teachers, along with 6 female teachers and 2 female staff funded by the ICRA Fund, which is a long-time partner organization that has been supporting education. And like I said, that now they have people from all over the country just kind of volunteering their time and, researching for them.
That's nice.
And as you see, women are more up for researching or volunteering, even though they already get less end of the economic spectrum.
True that.
The women staff, they conduct awareness campaigns for community women and girls. And in 2015, BWCDO hosted their first intern, actually, who was a young woman from this Pakistan University. And in 2017, they then hosted 7 female and 2 male interns from another university in Pakistan. So they really do boast, or they're really trying to encourage girls to come forward, which I think is really cool.
That is nice.
And obviously the collaboration with the government wildlife department, the local support organizations, and other NGOs that are obviously working around. And like I said earlier, women on the board of directors personally is very impressive to me.
I agree.
And it's technically skilled staff, including engineers and consultants and researchers.
Nice balance.
They help build these predator-proof corals so that they can reduce the snow leopard attacks, and then they can carry out awareness-raising activities in local schools and just tell locals about how they can prevent such an attack. Snow leopards have been known to have killed up to 50 goats and sheep in a single incident. Wow. So in order to reduce these incidents and the drain on insurance funds, because all these people are obviously insured, so it kind of does put a dent on the funding for this organization. But they kind of finance the building of the corals in project areas. And these corals are built on a cost-sharing basis, where communities provide local material like the stones, wood, and unskilled labor, while the organization provides extra local material like cement, the iron posts, mesh wire, wood, and actual skilled labor who can carry out the project. The organization has actually built 52 corals throughout the region, and they're well maintained, and no incident has actually been reported since.
Wow, so it's working.
Yeah, it really is. It's great, but all good things, there's a yin to the yang. They obviously have some issues. So one of the biggest issues, of course, is the snow leopard kind of coming in and taking away their livestock. All over the world we see this, that predators, they attack domesticated animals, and obviously solutions are not easy in a country like Pakistan. Now, if you have extensive hunting that is allowed in the mountain regions like we have in the northern area, so if snow leopards cannot find the wild animals, they're obviously going to come and attack the livestock. Another problem that they face is obviously the livestock wildlife communicable diseases.
Yeah,
and by the way, it is estimated that approximately 10% of the local livestock herd in a village is lost to diseases and accidents. While in the predation-prone areas, by the way, the work that BWCDO has been doing, that kind of only ranges from 2 to 5% of the total herd is lost to snow leopard predation. So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Another factor of social inequality that we see is the lack of adequate water infrastructure that leads to long hours that people spend just to obtain water for themselves and for the livestock. And obviously, both these factors lead to an entrenched cycle of poverty in these remote areas, which kind of forces dependence on livestock and settling the basis for human-wildlife conflict.
Yeah, it's always so sad when you think about the amount of things that socioeconomic disparities will make so different for different people.
Yeah, it is actually really sad. But I think although I think they are trying to work, so their main challenges are, of course, that they get the attack by poachers and the lack of funding for financing the compensation schemes that they have. So they're trying to get increase the support from national and international agencies for their effort. And honestly, they also hold this annual School Leopard Day with the local society, which I think is very cute.
That is pretty cute. Nice. Now we're going to talk about a group called Action Aid Ghana. So Action Aid itself is an international non-governmental organization, but it's a little different because all the organizations that make it up, they have little affiliates, and the ones in the countries, not fully independently, but they work, they do a lot of stuff by themselves. So they started in Ghana, they started in 1990, and in 2005, they were the first, I think, African country program to become an associate of Action Aid International with a local board of 13 people. They work closely with people maybe closer to the poverty line. And actually, matter of fact, that's what Action Aid in general has always done. They started in the UK, and they were doing those child sponsorship programs, sponsor a kid in a different country. And then they kind of evolved to focus on broader human rights. And then they still keep in turn with like focusing on people who are living close to or below the poverty line, just in that lower income, trying to improve things for them and trying to offer them the resources that they need to combat poverty. So as far as ActionAid Ghana is concerned, they specifically use women to transform agriculture, and they try to support smallholder farms, specifically female ones. Evidence from the UN indicates that if female farmers in developing nations in Asia and Africa had the same access to productive resources as men, they could increase their yields on farms by 20 to 30%. And that could... Damn. Yeah, I know, right? Which could raise the total agricultural output in these specific countries by 2.5 to 4%.
And that's a big number. People don't realize
it. It is, because this number indicates that 12 to 17% of the world who is currently living like in world hunger, those people could be brought out of world hunger by this number.
And imagine the GDP growth of these countries, because these countries obviously need more money.
Exactly. It's like, so what they do is really important. So how exactly do they do this stuff? I mean, like I said, they try to impact women in the country, women farms. And actually, in Ghana, women contribute to around 70% of agricultural production, marketing, and processing. Yet they face, they face several challenges. So usually, I guess a lot of people don't think about bigger farms being run by women. But in Ghana, even though it's mostly small farms, altogether it's such a large percent. And unfortunately, even though they contribute that much, they produce 20 to 30% fewer yields than male-run farms. And this disparity, according to the FAO, they say it's because of gender-specific challenges. So in order to close this gender gap and reduce the disparity, ActionAid Ghana is working on a lot of projects right now to sort of support women in farming and increase their access. So they have a bunch of programs. One of them is the NGGA project, which is really just like, so they try to get out there and like give these women first of all different methodologies that they could use, but also like actual real money, like with the Sustainable Livelihoods Project. They try to get the government to intervene. They try to get the government to change their laws. So for instance, the International Labor Organization's convention is something that Ghana has signed but not ratified, and they really want them to ratify it because it would help to try to reduce the discrimination that we see in different sectors for different genders. I don't know why they won't ratify, but yeah.
Girl, what's the point of ratifying? It's not like they're actually implementing that.
But that, I think that's why they don't ratify. They don't want any pressure to really do it. Also, they work with like land and climate, because when you aid smallholder farms with improving farming techniques and also their yield, it can be good for the climate in general. So there's a misconception that smaller farms are less productive, and it's actually not true, because 98% of the world's agricultural holdings are 10 hectares or smaller, which is considered smallholder. A lot of these farms are in developing countries where they support around 2 billion people. In sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, an estimated 80% of farmland is cultivated by smallholders. So if these people had the same technological access, if they had more government support, I feel that they'd be able to compete better. You know what I mean?
I know, I agree.
And like because they're so small, they tend to focus on one thing they can do to boost how much they make is improve quality, and just in general, they're not focusing on mass output, and they tend to be more sustainable. Anyway, in countries like Norway and Japan, small farm holders are making notable strides in that they're supplying up to, I think, a little over 50% of these countries' food needs. So it's just really important that we always try to make sure that any way we can We are supporting local farmers, and it's hard. It's easier said than done depending on where you live, because sometimes it can be more expensive to do that. But in the case that you are able to, you should try to do that. I guess my biggest issue with this organization is they're kind of vague on exactly how they'll involve government bodies in the issue of sustainable farming. Not vague as in the sense like they're not trying, but it's just like the government is... it's kind of hard to like crack these kind of things, and I get it, because it's really hard to get through to a lot of West African governments on a larger scale. Not all of them, but it's easier said than done. Yeah, great organization though.
All right, thank you, Ala. Well, now for my second organization, I am going to talk about the Community Baboon Sanctuary Women's Conservation Group. Now, I'm going to take a little longer with the background of this organization, because it literally might be my favorite fall of the patriarchy moment.
Oh my God, yes.
So in the early 80s, scientists found that the black howler monkey, which basically the baboon, the locally called baboons, in the northern coastal plain of Belize, they were the most critically endangered species amongst their entire species range, which is southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize. However, this population resided on the private lands of Belizean farmers, and obviously they needed the involvement of 7 villages so that they could help with their survival. So in 1984, this primatologist, with the help of this young resident, he worked with local landowners to develop a voluntary sanctuary to protect and grow the baboon population. Now, across the 7 villages, landowners reported that they liked the howlers, the baboons, and that they could easily commit to developing the sanctuary. Now, that's when the Community Baboon Sanctuary was created, in the following year, which was 1985, and it had a really diverse membership of landowners who signed voluntary pledges to protect and sustainably manage the lands. Now, it is obviously the sanctuary is a community conserved area that falls under the category 4 of the IUCN protected areas, like we talked about in our IUCN episode. Guys, please feel free to check it out.
Do that.
So category 4 is basically, it designates areas that aims to protect a particular species or habitat. So the Community Baboon Sanctuary was initially managed by men from 1985 to 1997, which is like something about 12 years. Now, this initial organization eventually fell apart due to financial constraints and internal conflicts amongst the representatives, mainly over how the benefits from the sanctuary were distributed. Now, who was saying that, oh my God, women are more dramatic, oh my God, women fight each other all the time. Really, men, you cannot work even together for the management of a sanctuary.
Wow, a place of peace, and they turned it into a place to fight over money.
Exactly, that is what men are. Please come at me and tell me why you think men are still better leaders, because they are not. Anyway, the women who were a part of this inception of this organization since its inception, they decided that they can't let such a unique model go to waste. So to save this sanctuary, Jessie Young, the wife of the sanctuary manager that I told you about earlier, she gathered the wives of all the male landowners and some women landowners to discuss the sanctuary and the needs of the community. Now, the group circulated a petition to the landowners requesting that women become the managers of the sanctuary. And landowners across the 7 villages actually agreed to this change in leadership. Notably, the men in the communities were actually supportive, since they would not be excluded from the future management of the sanctuary. So unlike the men managing it, the women were like, you can be a part of it. We're not saying you're not going to be a part of it. We're just saying that right now it seems like we can handle this. So in 1998, the Community Baboon Sanctuary Women's Conservation Group, or the CBS-WCG, was born as the new management committee of the sanctuary, and it was registered as a legal non-profit organization in Belize. Isn't it amazing? I love it. I love this story.
I love this story. This is amazing.
Right. So it is run by an elected 8-member board of directors, which is made up of a president and 1 female representative from each of the 7 villages. And one particularly powerful feature of this organization is that it brings together women from all walks of life, including women with different religions, cultures, even educational qualifications.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. And they actually work really well together to promote peace, stability, and actually women's empowerment and sustainable livelihoods across their communities.
Yes.
The organization also has an advisory body that is comprised by the key community stakeholders. They have a scientist on board, they have a business person, and a member of the CBSWCG. Mm-hmm. The organization holds quarterly meetings to address the needs of the community and the protected area for the programs and projects. It also holds general meetings with landowners to help them keep them informed of the status of the sanctuary and the development plans that they have for it. And as specific projects and programs are developed, the group holds additional community consultations, so to make sure that everybody is involved, sort of. Their main objective are conservation, research, education, and ecotourism and community development.
I love it.
Right. So for education, actually, they do a lot for community members and they do them to empower them, including they have scholarship opportunities in natural resource management and tourism. Since 2015, 10 young women and 2 young men have been offered scholarships to pursue studies in natural resource management.
I love this. Oh my God, this organization is just having me in my feels.
Right. And every year 250 youth, basically between the ages of 7 to 16, are educated in the Fallet A Young Environmental Summer Camp. So they created a whole, right? And there's also a youth conservation group of the same organization.
Oh my God, if I ever have children, probably not naturally, but if I ever have children, I will send them to an environmental summer camp. I just want to raise like little hippies.
And they do a lot for community development. So they try to support their community through activities such as sports, reforestation. They have cleanup campaigns, they have youth groups, school projects, disaster preparedness, health and well-being, family planning, and also actually a lot of work on gender equality. Like they address the support to domestic violence and help with rehabilitation.
Nice.
Now, women across these villages are not only provided access to livelihood development programs like handicrafts or gardening or entrepreneurship, but they're also actually provided with healthcare and educational opportunities.
This is just nice. I love that.
I personally think it's amazing. Another key impact that they have is with their sustainable development projects and their micro grants. So they will give micro grants to new and existing businesses that are run by young entrepreneurs or the women living within the community baboon sanctuary. That has led to production of organic fish, vegetables, and wines that provides food security for local families. And sale of surplus actually provides them with cash savings. And on top of their conservation and development, they actually contribute a lot to the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. They are covering more than like 5-7 of the sustainable development goals.
Oh, they're covering a lot.
But like everything, they obviously have problems with their organization. So like I said, because the large area of the sanctuary is made up of privately owned lands, so these privately owned lands are actually owned by men, and there's a smaller percentage that belongs to women. And the reason for this disparity is, of course, because traditionally men are viewed as heads of households. I don't know why. So they therefore own the family assets. However, in recent years, through advocacy and awareness, women have actually been increasingly heading households and owning land in the area.
Nice.
Yeah, but they still face the same problems, which are obviously because it's a sanctuary. If you have deforestation and a lot of your economic well-being depends on the safety of this habitat. If that's going to shit, of course you're going to shit.
True.
They have, of course, over-exploitation of the wildlife species, because there's a lot of villagers will still get money from these poachers and these hunters and will just let them get away with everything. And climate change and natural disasters are, of course, just kind of they're ruining everything. So what made you think they wouldn't ruin this? In the future, I think they are actually working to get more funding so that they can help with the implementation of these activities and programs that they've identified. And they're also trying to make another area, which is like the Mussel Creek, to be on the IUCN category of protected areas as well. And so that way they're also trying to raise money for a task force in order to manage that area. They also, one of the good things is that they keep updating their management plans so that they're very on top of it, and because they work within these different villages, so that nobody in these villages has a problem with the current management structure. So they keep restructuring the whole thing, which I think is really great personally. Yeah. And also and they promote new services through outreach to tour operators, and they organize training for farmers. Fingers crossed. Honestly, I love this organization. If you want to check out more, guys, we will have a lot more on our website. There's this one link. It's a very, very interesting report. Go ahead and read it. But yeah, we see women owning it, living it up, and actually killing at it.
Yeah, we love that.
We do love that.
Okay, so thank you so much. Really, we do love that. And now we come to our final organization. You guys, I swear to God, I actually asked Adwa, I messaged our group of friends, and I really tried to practice saying all the Spanish in this episode. I could not. But because I practiced really hard, I'm going to say the first one in Spanish once. So,
please do.
This organization is called the Fundación para la Conservación y el Desarrollo Sostenible. That was very hard for me, so we're going to be calling it the FCDR for the rest, FCDS for the rest of the episode. Or in English, Foundation for Conservation and Sustainable Development. It's an organization in Latin America, and it's kind of a larger organization originally with like member countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. They're leading the charge together to reverse land degradation and deforestation beyond the original 20 million hectare goal. So the FCDS in Colombia, because that's the one we're going to focus on, works with the IUCN, Rainforest Alliance, and USAID, amongst a bunch of other organizations, to accomplish these goals. They really try to focus on raising awareness. They actually affect policy, protect the rights of indigenous populations living in rural areas, and obviously this whole organization's biggest goal is the Colombian Amazon. So they do a lot as far as preserving that, and like I said, reducing deforestation. We're going to talk a little bit about their projects, but if they have a really long-term project, they break it up into more like a medium situation. So they hit goals and then they continue the next part, which I thought was really cool. So originally in 2011, May 27th, that's when they started as this collective I was telling you about. And it really was about deforestation when it started, but now it's kind of grown into this thing that's, of course, deforestation is bad, but why is it bad? Species, preserving our land, people's rights to live on the land, and how they use it. So they really spread their tentacles to touch on all these things. And they try to hold governing bodies and structures accountable as far as the laws that they make. They also do research.
Did you just say tentacles? They spread their tentacles?
I did say tentacles, okay. Yeah. They spread their tentacles, guys. That's...
Okay, octopus in the house, guys.
So, so they support development programs a lot, and they're part of the reason, the Frontline Defenders report, they could issue that because organizations like these let us know what is really going on and the repercussions in Colombia. So they've had a lot of impacts, I've been telling you guys, but just to name a few of their project impacts here. The first one is ecotourism. So there's this place called the Guaviare. Lord, I did not practice this one, and I should have.
Yeah, we see it.
The Guaviare Community Tourism. Guaviare Community, oh God. Tourism Project.
Girl, they hate you already. Just move on.
I'm just going to move on. To develop this region for tourism and bird watching. They finished it in 2015, and they led a group of professionals to work with National Parks Directorate in Colombia and the National Heritage Fund to develop a plan for the, oh my God, for a park in the Amazon. If you need to know the name of said park, please check our show notes. So, just a little bit.
Yes, because Allah has given up.
I have. I'm sorry. Adwa, what do you think about ecotourism? Is it actually helpful for the environment?
Like I talked about earlier, some of these grassroots organizations consider this to be so important to the protection of their habitats, even like they even have it as one of their objectives. Like I was talking about the community Baboon sanctuary for women's group, they aim to provide income generation to community members from ecotourism related activities. Like they do homestays and employment communities such as tour guiding. Now, there's a bad way to do everything. Even charity can be tainted. And it's probably actually the most tainted thing, let's be real. But ecotourism can actually help the locals protect their habitat. And if they have the government subsidies and they have their backing, they can actually continue to generate income for themselves while they protect their area. Like, for example, we have tourism in, like I was talking about the Baltistan region, like, so the Gilgit-Baltistan region. Tourism just recently opened, like in the northern regions of Pakistan, because, you know, before ecotourism, we had ecoterrorism.
Oh my God!
Horrible. But because of that, so it recently opened up, and it used to be a pristine place for people who went in, like, early on when it opened up, like in 2015. It used to be pristine. But if you go now, you have these people visiting from all over the world, and they will pollute the place. So that is normal tourism. You can obviously do ecotourism in those places, and what you do is, like, you make sure that you are binding yourself to a local instead of just going out with these tourist agencies that have absolutely no play in the game, and all they want is just money out of you. So they're not going to protect these places. They're not going to protect the locals. They're not going to protect the local wildlife either. I think it's one of the greatest things to ever happen to humanity, and we really should take more advantage of it.
No, for sure. Because, so the thing about ecotourism is, like, oh my God. The thing about ecotourism, girl, is that it is better than regular tourism because it usually entails more, I guess, consideration for the environment. But it's like you said, there's a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong. And I think a key thing is an ecotourist experience should be about appreciating nature, being one with nature, maybe like kind of a teachable experience for you. Would I love to go to an ecotourist resort? I would, because I like being outside in nature.
Yes.
Except when it's like freezing. Actually, I still like that too. I don't trust human beings to avoid littering, or like engaging with animals inappropriately, or introducing species that are harmful just because it's more attractive to bring more people in. It's like you said, like, it just can't be about money. It has to be an actual, the main goal of this place that's an ecotourist attraction should be preserving the environment and then bringing people in to experience that so that they want to preserve the environment. And then money should come second.
For sure.
Yeah. So another thing that they work on is, like, well, the biggest thing they work on, wouldn't say another thing, is like all their projects in the Amazon. They really try to encourage the Colombian government to designate more of the Amazon as a protected area. And they don't just, like, say, like, write stuff about this. Like, they go in there, they give them reports and things like that. And the government actually will use them from time to time. They also are the big mediators between the FARC and the Colombian government. And they have a protection control program that they're working on right now in the Colombian Amazon. They've carried out different studies before, like I said, but the thing about these studies is they try to address different municipalities, which I think is pretty cool. So besides all these, I mean, they do all these wonderful things, but they face a lot of challenges. Like we talked about earlier, the biggest challenges here would be striking the balance between supporting the government, supporting the environmental rights of the people in the region, and then dealing with the gangs in the area as well. So there's like 3 things you have to balance, not to mention the FARC. They do phenomenal work. They really do try to preserve the area, and the reporting they do is amazing, especially considering those stats that we discussed at the start of the episode. I wish that they had more, like, reports and stuff on their website. That would be really cool, so we can get more numbers. Check out our show notes, guys, because we really do think all these organizations are important.
Yeah, so since there are many organizations that we didn't cover, I know that we wanted to. And so I'm just going to talk about the 3 that we picked. So we have the Rico Plastic Congo. It is based in Congo. They turn plastic waste into eco wood, which is a great alternative for ordinary wood to fight against deforestation and mitigation pollution of our rivers and oceans. They could really use donations, guys, so please check them out.
Yeah, and guys, seriously, deforestation is a big issue in the Congo. So just to support the work that they're doing, like I just said, they need you to send them monies.
Then we have the Mangrove Marathon. It is the largest mangrove stand in Africa, and it is located in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, and it is quickly disappearing, sadly. So this group basically is working to map and document the decline of the area and bring attention to indigenous people who depend on this ecosystem. So also a great organization to check out. Then the third one that we have is the Indigenous Environmental Network. This is an alliance of grassroots organizations which is formed by indigenous people to address environmental and economic justice issues, and originally was in North America, but it is rapidly spreading globally. So protection of indigenous land is key. So they could definitely use your support. Please go check them out. So for the audience, are there any grassroots organizations that you think are making headway? Please do let us know. If you have,
yes, tell us.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, suggestions, or changes that you would like to see, please do let us know. We are very eager to listen to you. That will be our show. Check out our website, planetpolicypals.com, for updates and show notes, as well as references on everything we talked about today. Which is a pretty great conversation today, Ala, don't you think?
Yes, I do think. I learned a lot today. I loved it.
Right. We really hope you guys did too. So email us, leave us a voicemail, rate and review us. Right now, if you review us on Podchaser, donations will go to Meals on Wheels, and that's good for everyone involved. They give out food to elderly people who can't actually step out because they're high risk. So follow us on Twitter at Planetary Policy Pal, on Instagram at Planet Policy Pals, and like our Facebook page. Please do check out our other episodes. We do try to make everything be very coherent. So we think if you love this, you will love the other ones also.
Yes, you will.
Thank you so much, guys. See you in a bit. And keep learning, pals.